All right, guys, in today's video, we're going to be going over some comments that were recently made by Cory Barlog, the director of God of War 2018. He talks a little bit about the next God of War game, and he talks about the PlayStation 5 and the things he is most excited about when it comes to the power of the PlayStation 5. So obviously, I want to cover these comments. I think it's probably the closest thing to getting any type of confirmation for the next. Well, I mean, the next God of War has already been confirmed, but we just haven't really heard anything about it in quite some time. So this seems to be the closest thing to it. Plus, it's always nice to hear what somebody like Cory Barlog has to say about what the PlayStation 5 is offering power-wise. We're also talking a little bit about Godfall, because I'm sure as many of you are aware, the most recent state of play, Sony ended it by showing off an extensive look at Godfall's gameplay. And it seems to be getting mixed reactions here, but the thing that I'm finding most interesting is that a lot of people are drawing comparisons to Halo Infinite, and so I just want to kind of talk a little bit about that and give my thoughts on that. So this is what we're going to be talking about in today's video. If you could do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell notification icon. But starting here with what Cory Barlog recently had to say, it says, moving from one console generation to the next can be rather difficult for developers, but it seems like that will not be the case with the PS5. Speaking during the latest episode of Animal Talking, God of War director Cory Barlog commented on the next generation transition, saying that this time will be a little different and that he thinks he will not have to go back to square one. So he could very well be hinting at the fact that we could be seeing God of War 5 or the sequel to God of War 2018 much sooner rather than later. With every generation, it always feels like we master the generation, right? Then it's like, oh, there's a new one coming up, and you're like, but I just finally got this one. But I think this is going to be a little bit different. It feels like we've got a really good foundation of understanding, so transitioning between generations is going to be a little bit less of a massive leap of faith. Cory Barlog also talked about what most excites him about the PlayStation 5, revealing that the SSD will allow his team to do some very cool stuff. He also highlighted how the next gen will see a lot of interesting surprises from different studios. Cory Barlog and Sony Santa Monica haven't announced their first PlayStation 5 project yet, but it is being speculated that it will be a sequel to God of War, the excellent fourth entry in the series released on PlayStation 4 2 years ago. Rumors stated that the game would be revealed during this month's State of Play, but no announcement has been made during the show. What's also interesting, what this article doesn't mention, is the fact that there have been a lot of rumors circulating for a while now that apparently Cory Barlog is also working on a separate new IP that has something to do with space to some extent, which I don't doubt at all. But he's still, I would imagine Cory Barlog, no matter what he's doing, like if he is doing a completely new game, I highly doubt that he wouldn't be involved in any capacity with the next God of War. Even if he's just overseeing it, I could see that being the case. But I think his comments are extremely interesting here, because what it seems he's trying to get at is that the big problem they had in the past was obviously transitioning from one generation to the next, and how it takes them some time to really learn how to use the hardware and take advantage of it and allow their creative vision to be realized. And that process just takes a long time. He's saying that that's not going to be the case here with whatever it is they have coming up next. Presumably, if it is another God of War, I've seen a lot of people say that, oh no, God of War, it's going to take 4 to 5 years to make. You have to understand the reason why it took God of War 2018 so long, and why it was in development for so long, was because of that transition period. And also because they were just, they were working on something before that that just ended up getting scrapped because it wasn't working out. And so it seems to me he's just trying to let us know, look, you're going to see something from us sooner rather than later, because it's going to be much easier for us to transition to the PS5. And that's, again, this is one of the biggest selling points to developers that Mark Cerny and Sony have been focusing on, which is just how easy it is for developers to make their games on this console. I mean, you've just heard the praise up, down, left, right, and center. It's just about how simple this console is to really wrap their heads around it and start to really utilize in a significant way. He also talks about the power of the PS5, and he mentions the SSD, and he talks about how they're going to do some very cool stuff. And guys, I'm telling you, this is why I'm excited about why Sony went all in with the SSD, because even though there's a lot of people who want to make fun of it, they really don't seem to understand that from a gameplay design perspective. And I've seen people downplay this, and I honestly have no idea why. I've seen people make it sound like, oh, you're just going to potentially see some gameplay changes from a design standpoint, like actually fundamentally change gameplay design, but only from Sony's first party studios. And I've seen people literally say it that way, like it's not a big deal. Like, are you not aware of like how big that is, like what the implications of that actually are in the long term? But okay, we have Cory Barlog here letting us know that they plan to do some really cool things with it. He did mention loading screens, of course, which is almost a given at this point. And if you play God of War 2018, you can see how cleverly they tried to make sure they hid the loading screens. And I think they did a fantastic job, honestly, but they're not going to have to worry about that anymore. And it's going to be very interesting, especially when you think about playing God of War, you're transitioning, from section to section, and obviously you have to crawl in the tunnels. That won't be a thing anymore, but you also think about going from the different worlds, right? Like teleporting to the different realms and whatever. It just seems like that's going to be something that they could get really creative with, and I think it's going to be awesome. I mean, you could maybe even see a gameplay section where like somehow they tear the fabric and they're literally just going from one realm to the next, like instantaneously in some kind of epic battle. I don't know. This is just something I'm thinking off the top of my head, but that's what I think about when he talks about you're going to see some really cool stuff. And again, I have to emphasize that if we do see that really cool stuff he's alluding to can only be done on the PlayStation 5 because of that SSD. He also talked about how we're going to see a lot of interesting surprises from different studios. Now, I don't want to spend too much time focusing on that quote, but maybe I'm reading into it too much. It sounds to me like Cory Barlog is paying a visit to these other studios, seeing what they're doing with the PS5. I'm sure they're all sharing ideas. That's what these developers do. That's what Sony Studios do. And he's probably, he was probably surprised himself to see what some developers have already come up with. And he's excited to see how people react to it when we see it. So really good stuff there from Cory Barlog. I have to say, it's really nice to hear him talking about what they plan to do in the future. And I couldn't be more excited. But to move on from that, we're going to be talking about this Godfall gameplay, which again, Sony kind of highlighted at the end of their recent state of play. And to give my thoughts on it, I think it looks fine. I think it looks good, like to the point where I'm excited to play it. I know that a lot of people are very mixed on it. There's a lot of people who think it looks generic, which I totally understand. There's a lot of people who just think it's not really like a next-gen game. And I can admit that if you think about the PlayStation 5 and if you think about next-gen and what next-gen will be, I do not think Godfall is that game that kind of stands at the forefront. But at the same time, we have to understand what this game is. This is a third-party console exclusive. It could very well end up being a timed exclusive, and it's going to be there at the launch of the PlayStation 5, and it will have a co-op aspect to it. This is more than likely the reason why Sony tried to lock this game down, because it's something different. It's something completely separate from a game, say, like Spider-Man Miles Morales. They want to have a, somewhat of a diverse launch lineup, so I think Godfall fits that bill. But what's interesting to me is I've seen a lot of people kind of, I guess you could say, trying to use Godfall as a way to bring down the PlayStation 5 or bring down people's excitement for the PS5. And I've seen, unfortunately, and this just kind of blows my mind, a lot of comparisons between Godfall and the Halo Infinite gameplay demo. Now, you guys know, if you've been following my content for the past couple of weeks, I have spent a lot of time giving my thoughts on that Halo Infinite gameplay demo and how it was frankly just abysmal. Now, I always said, and you can go back and quote me on this, I've always said, if you're somebody who saw that Halo Infinite gameplay and you said, look, I don't really care about how the game looks, even though I think everybody can universally agree it just doesn't look like a next-gen game. It looks like a current-gen game at best. But even putting that aside, if you want to say you don't care how the game looks, you're just excited that it looks like classic Halo and you really like the gameplay, I said, more power to you. Like, that's the most important thing at the end of the day, right? It's not just about how a game looks, but there's no doubt that Microsoft really messed that up. The fact that it's a big AAA game, it's their big franchise, arguably their biggest franchise, right? And we've heard that apparently it's the most expensive AAA game ever made. I don't know how true that rumor is, but it's insane if it's true. I don't understand how people can try to compare that to what Godfall is. Again, it's a third-party console exclusive game. If you want to say it's because it's the gameplay that Sony decided to show during their state of play, okay. But even then, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that Godfall looked better than Halo Infinite, But let's be completely honest here. It certainly didn't look worse than Halo Infinite. I think we can all agree on that. And so I guess my whole point I'm trying to get at here is, if you're somebody who is excited for Halo, just be excited for Halo, but you got to be able to call a spade a spade. In this case, I'm calling a spade where I can acknowledge that Godfall is not the reason why people are going to go buy PS5s. Okay, Godfall is not the main selling point of the PlayStation 5, even at launch. Godfall is not, in my opinion, the game that people look at and say, oh yeah, there's that next-gen experience I've been looking for. It just seems like it's something extra, something nice, something that could be very fun. Whereas when you look at Halo, that's exactly everything I just described that Godfall isn't, is exactly what Halo Infinite should be, and it's not. So, you know, I mean, if you're one of these people that kind of wants to be like, oh, you can't say anything about Microsoft now because look at what Sony showed with Godfall, well, you might want to hold your horses there, because I assure you that Sony's going to have more to show gameplay-wise when it comes to what's going to be on offer at or around the launch of the PlayStation 5. We have yet to see Spider-Man Miles Morales, so you might want to hold off on that. But I guess, yeah, I'm just kind of surprised, guys. I'm surprised that this is the conversation some people are having when it comes to next gen. We're comparing a third-party, potentially timed PS5 console exclusive to Microsoft's biggest AAA game. It kind of blows my mind a little bit. So this is not me damage controlling by any extent. I know that's how some people are going to see it. I mean, there's nothing to damage control. Godfall looks fine. It does look kind of generic. I mean, yeah, it really kind of does. Doesn't mean it looks bad, right? And if you're unimpressed with it, then okay, I can totally understand that. Just like I can understand why some people would be unimpressed with Halo Infinite. But is it worth really trying to make it seem like Sony's in the same position that Microsoft is after this Godfall showing? I don't know about that. You might want to hold off on that. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes to acknowledge that, because I've seen a lot of people kind of throwing that my way, and just give you my thoughts on that. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Let me know your thoughts on what Cory Barlog had to say about his upcoming games or game, and what he had to say about the PlayStation 5. Let me know your thoughts on Godfall and people somehow trying to make comparisons between Godfall and Halo Infinite. Be sure to leave the video a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.